But always, and I'll say this again, go back to service, and that service humanity is the best work of life. So any way that you're doing it, but you have to be conscious and know your intentions, and that will lead you to the right path.
Welcome back to Mindshift with Luca and Jonty. This is episode 15. We are super excited for tonight's episode. We are heading into our last episode of the year, 2020. What a crazy year it's been. But we're wishing everyone a happy festive season, and I hope you all keep safe. And yeah, Luca, I'll let you take over for introducing our guest tonight.
What's up, everyone? We have got such a super special guest. I'm so glad we've got her online today to share her story, share her insights with you. And I'll be honest, before I introduce her, I don't want to break down a whole CV or say a whole introduction. I'll probably botch it because there's just so much. She does a lot. And I'm quite intimidated, to be honest, because when you see her, stuff on social, speaking at events like the UN and the Forbes Africa Summit, you sit there, this is especially from my perspective, I sat there and I was like, flip, I need to be doing a bit more, if she's out there speaking at the UN. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Savannah Cozzi to the podcast. Sav, would you like to just introduce yourself, give a 1 to 2 minute breakdown, just let everyone know who you are and how things are going on your side of the world?
Thanks, Luca. Jeepers, that was quite an introduction. I'm so nervous now. But yeah, thanks so much, Jen, for having me. I'm so humbled to be on this. It's really, really epic that you guys have reached out to me. And even the fact that you said that you want to do more, that's like really humbling. So thank you so much. And yeah, I'm really excited to just chat and share my insights and learnings. And I mean, I'm sure I'm going to learn so much from you guys as well. So thanks for having me. To introduce myself, I guess I am in unemployment for the next month and a half. Woo! Finished my LLB. Well, I kind of finished my LLB. Marks on out, but I've officially finished studying now at UCT. So I did 3 years postgrad LLB, and prior to that, I did 3 years in a Bachelor of Social Science in Philosophy, Politics, Economics. And yeah, like I said to you the other day, Luke, I guess to sum up my sort of mantra would be a quote that comes from the JC Creed at the Durban Youth Council, which is service to humanity is the best work of life. And that's something that I really hold dear to my heart, and I hope to implement in anything that I do, which hopefully shines through my work and what I'm passionate about. And I guess that's me in a nutshell. I don't want to bore you out here, but I mean, we'll chat a little bit more as we go along.
But
that's
I mean,
impossible.
To list some of your, the things, the service is something that you are very passionate about. I mean, to list some of the things you're involved in. I mean, Latoro, I saw you did stuff for the Red Wings project. You're involved with Shawco. Am I missing anything else? There's probably so much more.
You're missing a ton. Like I said, there's a lot more which we're gonna dig into a lot. But Sav, my first question, I'm so glad you mentioned that quote, which we're gonna have a little section on quotes, because I know right next to you, Jonty is also a little quote machine. So we're gonna have a little section.
Really, Jonty?
Exchange.
I love that. Because I actually have a big thing about quotes, because I think quotes are a short synopsis of learning that someone's had in their life.
Yeah.
So, someone has, whether it's an epiphany, whether it's something that they've learned from someone, it's like a few seconds that it's a synopsis of something they're passionate about, or synopsis of their learning that can be drawn out by someone else and implemented in someone else's life. And that's why I think quotes are so amazing.
Completely.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely drop it. I want you to drop in a few as we progress. But I'm so glad you mentioned that quote that you live by, because I wanted to ask, I find it astounding how you have so much conviction about your why. You've said it you've said it on numerous social media posts and stuff you've put out. You are very certain of your why, but you don't know what your how or what is right yet. And that's more than most people can say. I wanted to ask, just to, if we can go in a bit of a chronological order. When was the first, how young were you? When was the first time you remember sort of landing on that quote as your mantra and knowing that, you know, service is your why?
So I think that the first sort of incident per se or experience would be the Durban Youth Council. But I'm going to backtrack like a little bit prior to that. And I didn't think of this until right now. But when I was in grade 6, I like went to my teacher and I couldn't understand how we used to like, you know, like every like Friday you used to give like R5 and everyone would bring their like R5 or like everyone would bring their bread on Wednesday bread day. And I remember going to her and she always like brings it up with me, even now, like she'll chat to me about it. And I said to her, I don't understand how it's so revolved around things and why are we not like using our time? Like, why aren't we going to like somewhere and doing something or like learning with other people? And she subsequently like, not forced, but she told me that I must write my feelings down. So like I went back and like wrote my feelings down, and then she took it upon herself to send it to like, I don't know, the local kids newspaper. I don't even remember what it was called. And like it got posts and like people had like my friends came up to me like, oh, like that's so true, you know, like we all grade 6s, we don't know what about the world. But and then we started chatting, and then like a few of us started like speaking to her, and we're like, we want to do something more. And basically we started this program where we'd go out to this home by us like twice a week, and we would literally just play with the kids and like read books with them and stuff. And something so small from like an idea like that, you know, revolved into something that's, from what I understand, is still in the school, you know. And I just think that's so awesome, from like a small idea and voicing your opinion, that it subsequently can be something. And yeah, but going back to service to humanity is the best work of life, I think that my first proper understanding of that was from the Durban Youth Council. And that particular line is the last line of the JC Creed. And what the Durban Youth Council is fundamentally a non-profit organization that runs in Durban. And I would say about 50 schools or so have 2 to 4 members that represent themselves on this council. My maths isn't great, but I think it's around like 140 people end up like representing on this council from schools in the greater Durban area. So you would apply to your school, and then your school would choose certain representatives to go to the council. And you'd essentially meet every Wednesday and you chat about issues in the community, and you'd create projects to help the community in your respective, whether it's the schooling or outside of school, whatever it would be. And so I applied and joined the council. So when you join the council, you join at the end of your grade 10 year or grade 9 year, and you basically go through a training program where they teach you essentially how to be leaders and how to engage in the world, I guess. I think some of my best learnings, I mean, I'm a lawyer. One of my best learnings was one of the Saturdays we went out to like a leadership day, and essentially the guy said to us, if we could get 10 items, it was like silly items, like an ant, a balloon, a business card, all this stuff, and bring them all to us, he'll give us 10,000 rand. We're like, you know, grade 10s, we're like, oh my God, we're gonna score big here. So we like got all these items, like gave it to him, and he's like, sorry, you didn't get in writing. And we're like, what? He's like, everything you do in life, you need to get in writing. And that lesson has stuck with me.
That's a good
forever.
lesson.
You know, and like now when I'm sitting in law, I'm like, everything needs to be in writing. You need to have your contract in writing. Like, although a verbal contract is a verbal contract, a written contract is so much more valuable. So learned a lot of amazing lessons there. And when you go through this sort of leadership and training program, they essentially select a board committee. So you'll have your mayor, your vice mayors, then you'll have the chairperson of like sports and recreation, the chairperson of environment, the chairperson of arts and culture, and there's like I think 7 different portfolios. So at that stage, I was quite active in school and I liked being involved in different activities. So I was like, I'm going to apply for deputy mayor because that's something I feel like I'm like a very hands-on person, and I think that I'd be capable of, you know, being in that position. And I really want to be involved more than just a normal member of the Durban Youth Council. So all cool, like hunky-dory, everyone starts getting to know who's applying for what. And it's at the end of the day, it's a democratic vote. So you can't like impress the adults of the Durban Youth Council because your peers are going to vote for you, at the end of the day. So eventually, like, the interviews come. So the only impact the steering committee, which is the adults of the Durban Youth Council, have is they select the, what do you call it when you like round it down to when you like select or go from 10 to 5, the shortlist. There we go. Shortlist. There you go. So the only impact they have is they shortlist the candidates. So I would say to this day, I was telling someone the other day, it was the scariest interview of my entire life. And I think that no interview will ever be as scary as that interview. And I was in grade 10. So
but it was your first ever like proper interview, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So nothing can ever get worse than that. Well, I hope so. So I walked in to the interview and I sat down, and there were 5 males like sitting in front of me, and all like esteemed, like did a lot of great things in their life, very successful males. And you're very nervous now. You're being interviewed to be shortlisted. Like I sat down, and none of them started speaking. They all kept like a pin drop, and you wouldn't hear anything. So I had heard that they tried to test you. So I was like, okay, well, this is them testing me, but like I wasn't sure, So then I just started speaking. And I was like, the reason I'm applying for deputy mayor, and the one gent was like, please stop talking. So I was like, okay. And I just kept quiet. They continued to be quiet for another like 30 seconds, and we all just dead stared at each other essentially. And then another one said, why aren't you applying for mayor? And I was like so taken aback. I was like stumbling. I was like, I don't know, because I just think I'll be really better deputy mayor. I'm quite a hands-on person, and I think to be mayor, you need to be really capable. You need to have a lot of free time, and just went on. And then they said, well, you have the next like 15 seconds to decide whether or not you're applying for mayor, and then you can leave. And I was like, what? It's like, they're like, it's a yes or no. Will you apply for mayor? Will you not apply for mayor? So I was like, okay, I'll apply for mayor. And they're like, thank you. You can now leave the interview. And I walked out, and I was like, what? And there was like a whole bunch of people waiting for the interviews. And they were like, your interview was like 3 minutes. I was like, yeah, I'm applying for mayor. And they're like, you can't do that. And I was like, well, they asked me to apply for mayor. And they're like, what? Now I'm like just taken aback. I'm gonna get into the car, and my mom like picked me up and being like, I'm so confused, Mom. Like they asked you to apply for mayor. And my mom was like, what? She was also confused, And what made it more difficult was the next week was democratic votes. Now, how was I going to tell the 140 people that are now applying for mayor? It was like bizarre. So obviously somehow word got out, and the following week we had to say a speech. And best believe that next week I worked hard on that speech because I was so nervous. Because it's also like scary to think that they've chosen me, and the guy that I was going to apply to be mayor, I was like, he's amazing. Now I've got to compete with him. And like never in my wildest dreams did I think I was going to now compete with him, And so the time came, we said our speeches, and I guess it is a really nice story, because I did end up becoming the mayor of the Durban Youth Council, and my peers did end up voting for me. And I think that was the first time in my life where someone else had seen potential in me that I hadn't seen. And I think that's often a case with many of us, that you don't see the potential in yourself. Or, a personal thing for me is I often have imposter syndrome, and I think I've gotten something because it was luck, or, I did an assignment, I did well in an assignment, and like, oh no, like the lecturer was being lenient that day, and it's something that I'm personally like trying to learn to be better at. And I think we all, in some way or another, we don't realize our capabilities, and we don't realize that how, to say it blatantly, how good we are at certain things, and just like to say it plainly, that experience was honestly the most amazing experience. Just in terms of, I was a leader of 140 people that I now had to help and encourage and inspire them to be dedicated to service. And just also, I learned a lot about servant leadership, because as much as you want to lead from the front, you're never going to be successful in any given scenario by leading from the front. And I can share a story with you later where I was in Unilever and we had this competition and we did really well. And one of the heads of like Africa came to me and gave me one of the most backhanded compliments, but it was so good to hear criticism like that. And he said to me that I must be careful sometimes that I lead too much from the front and that I'm taking away from other people's potential to succeed. And that was also like really interesting for me to see, and to acknowledge and to be, okay, I need to be more conscious of that,
But that's so true also, because you'll love this as well, that Simon Sinek quote, that leaders eat last, right? So was that sort of your process of learning that actually you the leader, 100%. But you put your team first, the people below 100%. You come first actually?
And I think it is all about your team, I'm like, obviously I'm thinking about like my reflections on the year that I've had and the 6 years that I've had, and it fundamentally
please share all your reflections. I love that you reflect, and this is good stuff that people I think need to learn, especially after coming out of a year like a COVID year where reflection is key. We've had so much time to ourselves, so please do share what other reflections you have regarding that experience.
No, I just think that it's all about the people in any given scenario, where I sat at the Durban Youth Council, and if I just decided to, these 5 gentlemen saw potential in me and wanted me to be mayor, I could have just gone home and done nothing about it. But it's because of my relationships that I'd had with my other colleagues and my peers that they also believed in me. And that's because of people, it's your relationships with people that bring you to where you are. And I think in anyone's success, I can attest to my success in any scenario that I've ever been in. It's because of the people that I've been surrounded by, and it's because of other people's sacrifices that have got me to where I am, and other people giving up their time with me and even in like, for instance, Latoro, Latoro isn't the 5 directors that sit on the board. Latoro is like every mentor and every tutor that go out there and help every scholar that gets to that you don't often see on social media, but they are doing the groundwork that mold the student to become the best version of themselves. So that definitely for me it constantly is the biggest lesson, is that it is about the people, and you cannot succeed in isolation. It's about being with your team. And let's go back to the Rugby World Cup, why don't we? Like, we are stronger together,
I love that.
We are.
Sav, I wanted to ask about, the service and this passion you have, where does that drive come from? So you mentioned from an early age, it was kind of instilled in you. Do you think that was something that was taught to you by your parents, or do you think this was something that you learned yourself? Or where do you think it comes from, and where does that drive come from? And, why can't more people have that same drive to want to make the world a better place?
I do think that there's a whole idea of nature versus nurture. So I do think that I can say that it's from my parents and it's from my upbringing, but I can also say that it's from, again, what I've been surrounded by and what I've come to learn and my experiences. But I also think that there are certain elements that are ingrained in you and in your DNA that you won't be able to change. That certain things drive you and get you out of bed in the morning, that whether it's nature, whether it's nurture, it's just instilled in you, and it just, it gives you that fuel to get on with your day every day. And I do believe that my parents and my family at least are they're very passionate people, and I think that they're very loving people, and I think that will, mold you into a human that is passionate about service. But I also think that you can learn, because as South Africans, I think more often than, other countries, I'm not dissing other countries, but we are generally more caring. Like, we want our fellow South Africans to succeed. We don't just want to succeed by ourselves. Like, when we do well, we want them to do well. And I think that's an amazing characteristic that we have as South Africans. And we learned a lot about the notion of Ubuntu in law and how it actually incorporates in law. And it seems like a cliche, and often people just throw the word Ubuntu in like an interview, like, I'm passionate about Ubuntu. But fundamentally at the core, it really is what we are as South Africans. We really do. And you know what, we also, I think, like I said, going back to like imposter syndrome, that I think we often don't realize how we are helping other people in our actions, and how it might not be your idea of service in terms of like, working for an MPO, but the certain actions that you'll do every day is still service by definition. And I think that that's something that I've also come to learn, is that just because one person is serving in a different way than what I am doesn't mean that my service or their service is any better, because we all have a role to play in our small actions. And I think that that is so important, because our small actions do accumulate into and manifest into like infinite development and infinite growth. So
And I guess that's what I was mentioning earlier when I was saying I was quite intimidated of you, before obviously we actually come up and had a conversation with each other. It's because I guess, the stuff that you are doing and we're putting out on social media seems like something on such a grand scale. And something that resonates with me so much, Sav, is that like I also have I suffer from huge imposter syndrome sometimes. I was even chatting about it today, is that like I just don't celebrate small wins for myself. And I feel like, and you're a big advocate on kindness, and I think that it just makes me think that like, yes, so being kind to someone, going out of your way for someone, doing something small during the day still constitutes, service to an extent, even though we don't think of it that way, which is amazing.
And also, like, I was chatting to someone, I don't know if it was you who it was, but we were speaking about an example that someone's told me that the SPCA, there was this girl or guy that was raising funds for the SPCA, but specifically they were raising funds for dogs. And they're like posting all over social media because they're really passionate about dogs. And someone went up onto their social media and said, but what about the cats? And this guy's argument, and I mean, I completely wholeheartedly agree with it, was we shouldn't be like belittling the person that's raising funds for the dogs because they're not raising funds for the cats. We should be celebrating the fact that they're doing something that's so amazing and that's so selfless. And I think that's the sort of acts of kindness that we also need to like see. It's not just the conventional ideas of kindness that you need to like, be generous with like your income, or generous in terms of like your kind words, or it's like that different sort of kindness that's also like kind to yourself. That if you like really stressed out today, like just take a chill. You don't have to work like yourself to the core that's gonna like make you burn out. It really is being kind of like unconventional ways that allows you to remember that we're all human in this, and it's okay if we're not perfect. And I do think that it's hard on social media sometimes, because we see like other people and other people's successes, and other people just whatever on the beach, and you want to be on the beach while you guys are working. You guys probably seeing me now on holiday living my best life, and you're like, damn, I want to be sad. But also like I'm out here packing my flat up and it looks like shit, but you do highlight like the great things on social media, but social media still can be really awesome.
No, I mean, talking about social media, it's so important, because the point you bring up is because I found in myself this year is I've actually made a change inside my head. I'm like, okay, when you do find yourself procrastinating or going on LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever, I'm sending out, not that I'm necessarily commenting on posts, but I'm actively sending out support and like being stoked for these people who are sharing their achievements, seeing what you do, Sav, when you posted about Litoro, for example, I'm not going, oh, flip, why can't I do this and whatever, and like, and like judging that person for doing whatever they're doing. More I've been trying to go, okay, you know what, that's so awesome. I'm so happy for them that they achieved that they got this done. And it actually helps so much. And then that leads, once you start that process, once you sort of fix that broken link inside yourself, then you can start putting out comments and actually congratulating people, because I mean, that's just where I guess we need to get better at, right? Like
I agree,
making positive comments, telling people, sending people a WhatsApp and saying, well done, so happy for you.
Like celebrating someone else's victory doesn't take away from your own. And I think that that's something that we all need to constantly learn, is that I can sit here and be like, oh my word, what Luca and Jonty are doing is so amazing, and like we celebrate. It doesn't mean that like I'm taking away from my success,
Yeah, Luca, I love how much of a hype man you are on LinkedIn, bro. It's so cool. And I think yeah, spreading the positivity is so important. So it's great to see. Sav, I wanted to just speak a little bit more about this imposter syndrome. So like, what advice do you have for people who suffer from that? And how do you also find that balance with, because I think for me it can be a balance of, I want to be humble, and I feel that sometimes if I am suffering from imposter syndrome, if I want to try and like psych myself up a bit, that it can like edge towards arrogance. So like, do you have any advice on that?
Oh, okay. Let me think about this one. But I think I might be like turning the question a little bit, but I think often with imposter syndrome, you also have a lot of fear of failure. So I think like one of my biggest piece of advice is to people who ask me about like applying for like internships or jobs or just like doing something they really want to do is like feel that fear, like feel how like scary it is, but just do it anyway. Like you've got nothing to lose. And fear will literally take you to one side or the other side, and you want to be on that side where it's going to like fuel you to grow. You don't want to be on that side where it's going to cripple you and make you in a constant cycle of questioning, I'm not good enough, or a constant cycle of I'm never going to be able to achieve this. I do think that it is so important to be reflective. So I think in terms of whatever you want to achieve, to be reflective on your intentions. There was once a time where someone once made a comment to me about how I post too much about like service, like whether I'm raising funds for this or whether I'm like going out to this. And I think, hearing criticism is never nice, but when you know your intentions, it doesn't really affect you. Like I know why I'm doing that. I know that if we didn't put the tour campaigns on social media, we wouldn't have raised X amount of money. We wouldn't have been able to give X amount of scholarships, I think that I also share like my learnings and my experience on social media. And I know, like I said to Luca the other day, my friends always chirp me because they're always like, not everything in life has a lesson, Sav. And I'm like, yes, it does. Like, just deal with it.
I wanted to drop a little quote because you set me up well there. You only fail when you don't try.
I love it.
Did you guys hear that? Have you guys, sorry, also while you reminded me by saying that quote and Sav talking about fear, did you guys hear that story about, I think it was a speech that Will Smith was saying once, and he drops a fire quote. You guys are going to love this one. He was basically telling a story about his first time going skydiving. And he said that he couldn't sleep the night before. He was so scared. He was like, literally like his body was shutting down. But then obviously when you go up in the plane and you're 20,000 feet in the air, there's only one way down. You have to jump, right? So he obviously jumped, and he said all the fear just melted away as soon as you jump out the plane. So basically his quote was saying that on the other side of fear is freedom, which I love. And it's it's all it's all good and well us sitting here, and I find it's all good and well us sitting here and talking about that, and but it's hard to implement in the moment. And Sav, I'd like you to share about this. Makes me think, because you specifically mentioned fear when you submitted your entry for the Miss South Africa competition earlier this year. Could you maybe just talk through the process of that, tell the story behind it? And because I know you actually mentioned that you had fear, you were really, I can imagine it's a completely nerve-wracking event. So can you sort of work through your process of how you went through the fear and still submitted your entry anyway?
Oh yeah, so it's actually having dinner with one of my best friends the other day, and every year we have this thing where we do pits and peaks. So you tell each other your highlights and your lows of the year, and going through them, maybe when I found out I didn't make it into Miss South Africa, I would have thought that it was a pit. But like answering to a question, I was like, it was a peak for me. Like that experience was a peak for me. And it was probably one of the biggest learning experiences for me in terms of fear and in terms of putting myself out there and being fearless in the pursuit of what sets your soul on fire. That's another quote. I didn't make that up. I wish I did. But it really was an experience that I learned so much about. And I mean, a few years ago, I actually went to South Africa to go watch it. And I mean, in essence, it's a beauty pageant. And I remember coming home to Mom and saying to Mom, I don't understand why any girl would want to enter that. Like, I can't comprehend why someone would want to enter that. She was like, yeah, okay, like, you've got different opinions to other girls, but that's fine, you know? And then, like, in lockdown, I remember going to her and being like, Mom, I think I'm going to enter Miss South Africa. And she was like, what? Like, 3 years ago, you were like, I don't understand why someone would enter this. It's like, I know, but they've, like, really made an effort to, like, from what I gathered from social media, that they're really focusing on other pillars and they're, like, you know, changing the narrative a bit. And she was like, my mom was, like, my number one fan. She was like, go for it, I back you, like, do it. And it took me, like, a really long time to decide and do, like, introspection of why I was entering, you know, like, why do I so badly want to enter this competition, and think back again to my intentions. And I mean, the reason I want to enter because it is the most amazing platform that I think has an amazing ability to get out to South Africa and to get your message across and to serve as many people as we can in South Africa. And something it's so, like, I'm also, like, I just think everything in life has a reason, but the girl who won it is so passionate about service. And she always speaks about service. And I've, like, followed Miss South Africa's for a few years, and I've never heard a Miss South Africa speak about service as much as I've heard this one. And that's just, like, that brings me joy. But yeah, so then when applying, or in the process of deciding whether to apply, I obviously chatted to, like, close friends and my family, and the person who kind of like convinced me was, I've got an older half sister, and, like, phoned her, and she's quite crazy, and I told her my whole reasoning and what I want to do, and she couldn't understand why I was doubting myself. And she was like, you keep doubting yourself, just do it. And I was like, I know, but it's really scary and it's a pageant. And that for me was the biggest thing. I was like, I'm very confident in, like, what my passions are and who I am, but, like, the whole pageant side of it, I mean, I've never done a proper photo shoot. John T can attest to that. I'm a terrible, like, model. I, like, cringe.
You're a good model. What do you mean?
What was it? Like, I get awkward, and, you know, so that
the photo that came out was amazing though. So I mean, are you saying that there's 1 in 100 or something?
That's not skills. That is the photographer skills. That's pure talent.
It's 50-50. It's both of us. So I won't take all the credit there.
But yeah, so then, like, applied, and I think what the scariest aspect about it was the first year that applications were online. So it wasn't like you could go, I don't really know exactly how the process worked prior years, but it wasn't when you could go in and apply in person. This year was you applying in front of, like, thousands and thousands of people that could see your video. And I mean, I was at that, like, business profile where you can see how many people, and I was, like, gobsmacked, like, how many people had, like, viewed my thing, you know. But when I entered, I just couldn't believe the overwhelming support that I got from, like, the people that know me in the community. And it was like, I remember crying to my mom the one day and being like, people really believe in me. And I was like, this is, like, bizarre. Like, I can't actually believe people, like, back me to do this. And that was such a humbling experience. And it taught me so much about, you know, like, again, you don't believe in yourself sometimes, and you need, like, experiences like that to know that you've got, like, an amazing community, and the people that surround you support you in what you do. And that's really special. And then obviously it came out that I didn't make the top 35. And look, I was upset, but I wasn't sitting there crying for, like, 3 days because I didn't get in. And I think it came back again to my why. I did not plan to enter Miss South Africa for the past 10 years. I'd, like, decided in, like, a month or so before it came out. I can't actually remember when, maybe it was, like, 2 weeks before. And I didn't need, like I said in my post, you don't need a platform to serve. You can still serve in your everyday life. And I think that that's a big lesson that we can all learn, is that as much as I wanted it, because it is such an amazing platform that would take what I'm passionate about to an extreme level, it doesn't take away that what I'm doing now is not serving, you know. But it did make me very vulnerable, and also learning about myself, how when I'd see someone out and they would speak to me about it, and then some people obviously knew, some people didn't know, so then I'd have to say, well, I didn't make it. And learning to also be confident in that rejection was also something I'd never dealt with before, and having, like, an open conversation, being like, well, actually I didn't make it, but it was in explaining, you know, my experiences. And something that I actually have to voice, which I'm so interested about, is the amount of men that came up to me and were like so inspired. I remember being on a run once, some guy that I don't really know, like stopping me and being like, hey, sir, and I was like, hey, like huffing and puffing. He's like, your application to Miss Africa was so inspiring. Like, I don't really know you, and I know you didn't make it, but like really it was epic. And it was just so like humbling, you know, that someone had taken the time and stopped me on my run. And it was just, that's so amazing, you know.
Yeah,
but we all have our experiences where we face rejection. I mean, I'm sure you guys too have like a personal story where you face rejection, and it's hard. It's really, really hard. And it's important to reflect on that, but you have to move on.
Yeah. Sav, you said something that, you know, has actually come up on the podcast before. You said, just do it. And, you know, Jared actually mentioned that in the last episode, but I absolutely love that because, you know, going back to that quote about you only fail when you don't try and everything, but if you just give it a go, you never know what can happen. You could like rather don't live with the regrets and like look at what came from it. Like you said, there were so many people that backed you, and obviously you've learned a lot from that experience. Do you think you'll be trying again next year, or you know what?
I don't think I will be. No, I don't think I will be. Not because I don't think that it's an amazing platform or whatever. I just think that sometimes you have to learn what's for you and what's not for you, you know, like,
yeah,
yes, like it's okay. I'm not trying to like back myself out here, but it's a known fact that most girls who enter will only get through to their second or third time. So, I mean, Zosie, who was Miss Universe, who is Miss Universe now, she was in the top, I think, like 25, and then didn't make it. And then the second year, won Miss South Africa, and then was Miss Universe. The girl that is currently first runner-up, so like second place in South Africa, this year, she didn't make it anywhere last year. Like she didn't, you know, like same sort of position as me. So I do think that it is, you know, people would encourage me. Like I got, weirdly enough, the current Miss South Africa actually messaged me on Instagram and said that I'm going apply again.
Sure.
Which was also really sweet. I was like quite wildly, I couldn't believe that I'd like 3 voice notes from this girl. It was bizarre. But I just think that sometimes, and it's weird because I feel like my mom just knows me so well. And I said to her, like, I don't think I would apply again. And she was like, I don't think you will either. And, you know, sometimes moms just know, like, when I'm upset or something's wrong or I need advice, my mom just knows. And the fact that she said that to me, like she knows me so well, and maybe it's just not my platform, maybe it's just not for me. And we each have our path, and there's a path for every girl and there's a path for every boy, and it's just part of it. But I just want to round back to this is one of my big learning for me as well in terms of like going for it and failure, and that is in life you either win some or you learn some. There's no like losses in it, you know. You're either going to win at it or you're going to learn at it. And I think that's when you change your understanding of that, I think that it does help you see things differently. And I mean, I think both of you are optimists. So I feel like I don't even have to tell you this because I think you both know that lesson really.
Yeah,
but
agreed.
I do think that it is something that's so important, you know.
Yeah, I mean, what I wanted to say is, so your failures are where you learn the most, or I think Luke and I also believe strongly in like failures and challenges and tough times. That's when you actually grow as a person. So if life is going super well and easy and you're always, you know, winning, and I mean, obviously that's great, but you know, are you actually learning and improving from that? Because you can't really learn and improve if you're always doing well. I mean, you can, but I think you learn more from failure.
No, I don't. No, you can't.
Yeah.
I disagree. You actually can't. You need those failures, and you need all those stepping stones to make you to who you are as a person. You know, and also like every single person has a success story that's molded and it is accumulating of a whole bunch of different failures that you've never seen. You know, and sometimes you'll get lucky where you apply for a job and you'll get it straight away, or sometimes your startup will be successful straight away. But most often it's not the case, and it's that persistence that will allow for you to succeed.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's all through the learning process. You know, it's not about the destination; it's the journey. You know, that's a cheesy
And and then going back, you mentioned reflection earlier. So I mean, I think that's so important as well, because if you failing or going through these things, but you're not actually reflecting and being like, how could I have done this better or improved? And so something I've done this year is I've started a reflection journal, and so I'll write down what went well, what went bad, and how could I have done it better. And even with the what went wells, is how could I have done it better? Because no one's perfect, right? So that's something that I've taken away, but especially on the things that I failed. And there obviously have been a lot of things where I haven't, done well at work or something, and it hasn't been as good as I think I could have done it. And that reflection is so important. And then being able to go back, a year later, like now it's the end of my first year of work, and look back and see, this is what I wrote, and have I actually applied this going forward? And so that's why I think a reflection journal is so important.
I love that, John T, because
Yeah.
I think that is so key. You need to be like reflecting, and I mean, from your own experience, you just attested to how valuable it is. And I also have like a reflective journal, and mine's I don't write in it every day. It seems we got the same, where you write it after like an experience. And it is so nice to go back and to see, like how you've grown or like certain lessons. And I do think that that's something I would recommend to anyone, is that to have a reflective journal, to like reflect on things that, whether it's in your career, whether it's in your personal life, it's so important to be reflective, because it will make you effective, like no doubt.
Is that another quote?
And it's also so important, especially stuff I've found journaling. First of all, I love the fact that I want to ask Sav, is there a reason you don't journal in it every day? Because I'll tell you why I'm asking is because I found that earlier this year, I was very much into my morning routines, journaling, meditation, all of the good stuff that Tim Ferriss recommends. But basically, I just found it became a bit overbearing, and I almost like psyched myself out. And then what happened was I would maybe have a bad day and I wouldn't stick to it, and then I'd that's another I hit myself, kick myself again, and I'm like, why didn't you do that? So and then you just cause a spiral. So why is it that you don't why is it that you don't journal in it every day? Is it for that reason, or you just like to document experiences as you have a really good one?
I think finding something that works for you, there's so many inspirational books out there. There's so many inspirational podcasts and like people telling their stories, but you have to find what works for you. I remember once going to a John Sanai talk, and weirdly enough, I figured this out literally like a year afterwards, but the lady that spoke at the talk was the founder of Future Females. I didn't know who she was, but I just thought she was really super cool. And all the speakers got up and they're like, yeah, so wake up at like 5:30 and do my meditation and like journal and this and that. And then the next person was like, oh, I wake up at 4:30 and I go to the gym, this and this. And then she was like, yeah, so I wake up at 9 a.m. So everyone else wakes up and prepares the world when I wake up. And it was just like, it was so sweet and so like organic and genuine. And I loved it, like just because some books say that you should journal every day or that you should meditate every day. Like, it's not going to work for everyone. So for me, I don't find that I'm benefiting as much as if I'm journaling every day, as if I'm reflecting. It's finding like something that suits you and what works best for you. Like I'm really passionate about like food, and some people would say that I spend too much money on eating out, but that's what gives me so much happiness, and that's my thing. So like it's about finding what works for you. And I think it can be also overwhelming, like even like listening to John Sanai. My mom like preaches John Sanai. She loves him, and he's amazing. But also you have to like take each person's advice with your interpretation of things. And like, again, go back to your intentions and like how you think it will best suit you and trying things out. You're never going to know unless you try things out, like unless you've tried, like you said, having journaled every day, you wouldn't have known that it didn't work for you. Or like some other people, one of my like really close friends, she had a morning routine and she loved it. And then things just happened and things got out of control. She was so busy and she forgot about her morning routine, and she realized that the morning routine was so fundamental for her mindset and for her success. So it's kind of just like figuring out, like we're all just figuring out, we're all pretending that we know what we're doing, but we absolutely have no idea. And it's just part of the process, you know?
I love that. I love that.
I love that advice because I think, you know, you read these books and all these things, you know, you got to wake up at 5, otherwise you won't be successful. You know, like those
Completely.
I love how you say it's, you know, everyone needs to, you know, find what's best for them, because that's so true. I mean, I don't know if it's 100% true, but apparently Jeff Bezos gets his 8 hours of sleep. And you know, I need my 8 hours of sleep, and I wouldn't say I'm not a successful dude, or I'm failing at life, but you know, I feel like, you know, sometimes, you know, for me personally, I need like a good night's sleep, and I need my off time as well to rejuvenate, so that when I work, I'm super focused. And I think, yeah, people mustn't be hyped up about these crazy like working hours and doing all these things, because balance is also key in life. So I think it's super cool that you say that, and it's cool coming from someone who's like, I mean, I was looking at your LinkedIn, he's got all this going on. I'm like, how do you, you know, I mean, it's cool that it comes from someone who seems like, I mean, and you are like incredibly busy. So yeah.
Thanks, Jonty. I think it's also a thing of, I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen it going around socials and stuff. It's that a quote that's like saying that you must rest as hard as you hustle, you know, because it's so important. And like, you know how I'm speaking here and I'm saying how passionate I am about service and that, like, that doesn't mean I don't like a frozen margarita with like an extra tequila in it, you know, like we have to also, that's a big lesson that I learned in 2019 was pigeonholing. We need to stop pigeonholing, that just because a person is really like passionate about finance and accounting, that doesn't mean they can't like skydiving as well. We're all so intricate beings. We have so many different interests that it's okay if we like vastly different in ourselves, you know, like you're allowed to like different things and be passionate about different things. And like I said to you, sometimes I find myself like having a pickle with the money that I could be spending and eating out, that I could be investing into like the organizations that I work for. But I also have to like fill my own cup and what makes me happy, you know, as much as that I can use that the positivity and the energy when my cup's full, that I can overflow and I can use into others, you know. And like we are human, and I think that that's something that we all get worked up about, is like having this like really hectic mentality that we need to be working so hard, that play is just such like a small aspect of it, you know. Like people that work with me and people that like who know me well know that like I love both sides of the coin. You know, I love to like have fun, but I love to work hard, and like I even sometimes try to integrate it. You know, you can work and play at the same time, you know, and it's like you've got to find that balance. And when you're like comfortable with people, it makes things so much enjoyable, you know. And I think that again, it just goes back to like your intention. When you have like a good intention and people know that you're gonna work hard, and just because, like, silly example, but like you like a frozen margarita and I'm still passionate about like service, that doesn't mean I'm a bad person, you know. It doesn't like it mean that, oh, like it doesn't work, you know. I also always say to my friends that I used to get so beat up about the fact that people would see women that like speak at the UN, or women that are really passionate about charity and stuff, they weren't seen to like dress well, or you know, spend a lot of time on like say their hair or their nails. And then you get like people like Amal Clooney, who's now like changing the narrative, where she's beautiful and she's elegant and she spends a lot of time in that, but she's still fighting for human rights for people, you know. And I'm like really passionate about that as well, because why can't we not look really good and still like be passionate about certain things? Like I think often women have to deal with a lot of these things that men don't necessarily have to like even think about, you know.
Yeah, and I mean it's so true. You, I mean, you even have like you know, there's scenarios where you have like actors who turn into some of like the best entrepreneurs. Like look at someone like Jessica Alba as well. I mean, can I don't know if you guys are aware like that she's built like a monster like cosmetics company, I believe.
Really?
Yeah, but I mean, you don't see her in movies because she's running a business right now. Ashton Kutcher, like super successful investor, you know, also, which is super cool, and I love to see that as well. And that also gives me assurance that you can wear many hats. I said it in a previous episode that back in the ancient times, I read something where back in the ancient Greek times, how your life sort of panned out is that you went to school, then you studied, you did further studies, then I don't know if I can remember this properly, but then you basically went to work, you then became a politician, then you became a philosopher. So your whole life like just went through this whole different
motion.
spectrum of like careers, and so I mean, why not? Why can't we? Why do we have to specialize, or why do we have to like only like be someone who does a 9 to 5 jobs and then goes out to drinks, or the other way where you only work? And I mean, what you've done so well, Sav, is that you have, I mean, it makes so much sense talking to you right now when you look at your CV with the charity work you've done and even like the sort of business ventures that you've gone into. And maybe we can talk a bit more about the businesses or the startups you've been involved in, because you've also aligned those so perfectly with your purpose, with your why of service. And one that you haven't really documented as much as of yet, because I feel like you may be still in an early moment of it, is your fave corporate space. That's the business you've just recently co-founded, or you've got it up and running quite recently. Do you want to share the backstory to it? What are your guys' aims? What's happening right now? And who's that targeted to?
Cool. Yeah. So your fave corporate space was actually started by my co-founder. Her name's Grace Masita, and it started as something that I don't think she thought it was going to be what it is now, but essentially was during lockdown. She's in the Alan Gray Orbis Foundation, which is an amazing network to be in. So she's had the privilege of being part of that, where they provide tuition fees for you, and then they give you business coaches and mentors, and it honestly is so phenomenal of a program. And she started this, essentially was like Instagram lives, what she did, and she would get people on that were really inspiring. Majority of them would be from the Alan Gray Orbis Foundation, because she had the network and they had been doing really cool things. And one day she reached out to me, and I didn't know her. I had seen her once in the library, but didn't know her. And she reached out to me. Jokes, I've just lied. She didn't reach out to me. She made a post about featured females, and I commented. And I said, oh my word, I'm so glad you enjoyed it, something like that. And then she got chatting to me, and then she said, I've actually just started this thing, and I didn't know what it was. Only after she told me, she invited me onto this thing. I was like, oh, cool. And I went to go check it out, and I was like, really, really cool, because I was the second guest, or the second week of guests. And God, and it was really cool. And she was asking me about my internship experiences and how I got certain internships like Future Females, and just chatting to her and like my insights. And afterwards, I really enjoyed it, and I started to watch all her lives, and I thought this is a really cool like concept. So then we continued chatting, and then we had a phone call the one day, and I said, what do you foresee this becoming? And she's like, to be honest, when I started it, I just wanted it to be like a live for people to learn. And I said to her, I think this can be a lot more than just what it is. And then she agreed, and then she went back and decided that she wanted to actually like co-found this with someone. And then we basically put it out to the public and was like, I'm looking for someone to like team up, whatever. And then we got chatting, had like an interview with her, and then subsequently spoke about how we foresee this growing and what we foresee it to be. And then here we are, co-founding Your Fave Corporate Space. And essentially what we want it to be is a platform, all things centered around internships, opportunities, entrepreneurship, education for Gen Z by Gen Z. So it's making that aspect of university or just the individual school accessible. So for her experience and from my experience, university, the best learnings came from out of the classroom. It's not from us sitting in our LLB lectures or my PPE lectures. It was the time I worked for SLSJ, and we went out to Khayelitsha, and we had to learn how to like organize when they didn't want to open the church center for us, and like thinking on your feet then, and how we're going to like organize this. Or working in Future Females, where I had to like engage with 150 entrepreneurs at one point in time and give my views on certain things, or and I think that's, for me, I'm so passionate about, because I think it's so important for us to learn through those opportunities to become the best version of ourselves. And people often reach out to me and say, I really want to do this, but I'm really scared. Like, what do I do? Or I would love to do this, but I don't know how, or, X, and it continues and continues. So there's obviously a need for people that want internships. It's just trying to find how there's a need on the company side, because obviously everyone wants a job, So at this point in time, we have obviously created the platform and launched the business and registered in that, but we still figuring out, doing more market research at the moment, figuring out how we're going to set this up, how we're going to monetize it, what is specifically is the need from the student's point of view, what is the need from the company's point of view, how do we incorporate it in terms of startups, because we think startups are a great way for people to learn. Sure. How do we make them paid internships, because often being unpaid internships is for a more privileged individual, but do we potentially have a fund that we now get students to apply to, that we say, okay, they can prove to us, I don't know how, but that they can't afford, so we will pay for them to work at a startup for 2 weeks, so it wouldn't be the startup having to pay. It's all those things that we still in the process of trying to figure out, and looking at other businesses that are similar to us. There's 2 that are relatively similar to us that we're learning from and seeing how our model is different to theirs and why ours would be better than theirs, or what we can learn from theirs, So it's very early days for us, but I just think, again, what you guys said, you just started, and I think that's so important. We don't have all the answers, but we're just learning, and at the end of the day, if it is an epic failure, we've learned so much within a short space of time. I've learned so much about business, about working with someone else, and I've learned so much about my legal career, because now I had to look at contracts and I was like, oh, I know what this is, or oh, no, I don't like that contract, that clause, So it's all part of the learning. But this is my first proper business venture that I've entered into, and I am very passionate about entrepreneurship. So it is really cool to be learning through the process as well. To be honest, I never really thought that I would be an entrepreneur per se. I always envisioned myself in more of an NPO role than an entrepreneurship. But as I grow older, I see the value in entrepreneurship in so many ways, that beyond just wanting other people to be entrepreneurs, it's also really cool learning, and for myself as well,
And you said you saw yourself maybe in an NPO versus being an entrepreneur. This is a question, because I've been debating this with some friends throughout the years. Do you if your goal is to help and serve, then can you do it more effectively in an entrepreneurial role, like starting a business, helping people, maybe even donating, say, some of your profits towards good causes, versus being in an NPO, and maybe that NPO can't actually get the same reach that your company can. This is something that I've been thinking about with moving forward in my life, where I want to go. And you can easily say, am I trying to persuade myself that it will be better for myself, because maybe I'll make more money in an entrepreneurial role or in a corporate role, but maybe actually at the end of the day, you can have more influence in an entrepreneurial role or a corporate role. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a very valid question, and I do not have the answer to that question, but I can give you some ideas that I have. So I think, again, it goes back to your knowing your why, knowing your intention. And I think that if there is an entrepreneurial venture that you are keen on getting involved in, and you feel very strongly about that, I would more so say do that than getting involved directly in NPO. Because I think that entrepreneurship can create so much more than just an NPO. And I'm not taking away from NPOs at all. I mean, I'm in one and I've worked for one my whole life. But I think that they're not self-sustaining, which is hugely problematic. There's no way for them to, I'm not going to say no way, but it's very difficult to raise funds for a nonprofit organization. So if you can come up with a social enterprise where you can generate income for the company and allow for it to succeed, but still get profits from it, is a great means to get into business. But I think in entrepreneurship, even the stats recently that have been shown in terms of how beneficial entrepreneurship can be, I'm such an advocate, specifically for South Africa. I actually read a quote yesterday about the service industry, obviously about food and eating out, trying to make myself feel better. And it was, when you eat out one meal, you are indirectly helping 28 people from that one meal that you eat. And to put that into perspective, that's a lot of people that you're helping by eating out one meal. And yes, granted, I am privileged that I have the opportunity to sit down and have that meal, but you're still helping people in a way that you don't directly think. It's, again, going back to that, we have this conventional idea of kindness or the conventional idea of service. And you also have to look at it like a little bit differently, that it's so totally cool and like so epic that you want to get involved in like an entrepreneurial venture. And it probably will be epic and it will be so beneficial in the long run, maybe not necessarily in the short term, but there will be aspects that lead on from that will benefit people surrounding you.
Yeah. And I mean, Sav, do you see yourself maybe going into an entrepreneurship venture? I mean, say your fave corporate space or whatever you started in the future, completely takes off and it becomes a monster and it's self-sustaining. And I mean, you could potentially then, and this could be for anyone, it's just an idea. I mean, you could use that as a vehicle to fund your NPOs and whatever you want to do. For like we said earlier, don't pigeonhole. So why not do both? There are tons of people who run funds like that, and I mean, just make the one to build the other. Your entrepreneurship venture 100%. And then your NPO and your charity and whatever you want. But I want to ask as well about you said get involved in an entrepreneurial venture that you're really interested in, and I found that with you about Future Females is that you were, from what I was reading, is that you were almost like hell-bent on getting a job with them. Why was that? Why was that so? What drew you to? I mean, it's pretty obvious, but I mean, what drew you to the company? What were they doing that's so influential? What are they doing, and what were they doing? And please share the story of how you hustled your way into the internship, into the job, into everything. I think it's so valuable for everyone out there.
Cool. So for those who are listening, Future Females is a company that essentially started where 2 females came to an accelerator program in Cape Town, and they were part of a group of about 60 other people. I could have made that number up, but just to give you context of it, that there were 2 out of, let's say, 60 female CEOs of companies. And they were like, wow, this is clearly an issue. Went for a drink or something one night, spoke about this issue, and the next thing, Future Females was born. And the primary goal of Future Females is to increase entrepreneurship globally. That's their core mission. And I think it is so valuable. And having been hypothetically in the company since my internship at the beginning of this year to basically the end of 2020, the company has grown exponentially in such a short space of time in what they want to do, in scaling the business, in the reach they're getting to. And fundamentally, it's also showing the need for a company like Future Females in the world that we're living in today. So how I found out about it was, I think through a friend. She told me that she went to one of the Future Females talks. They have like monthly talks. And then I did some research and it looked really cool. And then I said, you know what? Because I'm always like looking at things online, like things that interest me. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to see if there's like an email or website, something that I can reach out to one of them. Because like the holidays are coming up and I was like, I want to do an internship and like learn. And found the founder's email on Instagram and emailed her, I think it was like October last year, and just said, basically just like introducing myself, attached my CV, like a cover letter, and said, really love to like intern with you guys. And 2 months passed and I had no reply. I was like, okay, well, that is what it is. You win some, you learn some, all part of the process. Then I think it was in December, I was like, she's very big on social media. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to DM her on Instagram. Like, surely she's always posting, she'll like see it, just I DM'd her. And within like half an hour, I got a reply saying, I'm so sorry, I did see your mail. I apologize for not replying. Send me your number. So I sent her my number, and it's quite a funny story in retrospect, not so much at the time, but when she called me, I was on a wine farm. I was like 2 glasses in, and I remember getting this call and being like, who was calling me? And then answering it, and it was her. And I, like, you know, when you're like having such a good day and then you answer it, and I panicked and I stopped and I like told my friends to like keep quiet, and I had no idea what it was. So they like panicking there was something wrong. And then just got chatting to her on the phone, and she said, why do you want the internship? She said to me, she saw my CV and she said I look quite interesting, but like why exactly? And I was like, I just think that I'd learn so much, and I feel like I could, like my skills would be like valuable in this X, Y, Z. And she's like, okay, cool. Like you can come for 2 weeks, whatever, start in Jan. So I was like, epic. So went to the company. It was an amazing 2 weeks. I was basically helping them with the business school portal, which is their accelerated program. That's the main task that I did. And just getting exposed. They were really, really cool and exposing me to the different elements of the company. So they taught me all about Finance Club. They taught me about the accelerated program. They taught me about how they run their Facebook pages, like how they create content, all of those sort of things I got exposed to. But then obviously 2 weeks is quite short. So I had an amazing 2 weeks, and then, you know, my time was up and left. And they were like so sweet when I left. And then lockdown happened, and then the head of marketing, like I think she phoned me or emailed me, I can't remember, and said to me, hi Sav, we're having like a virtual summit and we're looking for someone to help us for like 3 days. Would you be keen? And before she'd even told me that I was going to get paid, I was like, I'm in, like keen, be so cool. I think I learned so much from you guys, so very cool. And then they offered me to pay me for the 3 days. And sorry, I forgot to mention that prior, when I did my internship before, it was unpaid. So now I went from this really cool 2 weeks unpaid internship to now basically they reached out to me asking me if I want to work for 3 days. And I was like, epic, cool, work for them. Then like, I think it was like a month or so later, they asked me again, can you do like two days of work for us? And I was like, yeah, like really keen. And it was really funny because I think I've been added and removed from this WhatsApp group like 20 times because they'll like add me, then they like remove me, and then add me and then remove me. And then, yeah, so they worked for them like the 3rd time. And I just loved everything about what they were doing. Like I was in charge of the virtual summit with people's emails and like the Facebook page, and just seeing the women tell their stories, and like the speakers were like mind blowing. Like one of the speakers there actually inspired me to get more financially aware and to like get involved in like buying and just like selling stocks and stuff. So this was really, really inspiring. And then after that, obviously left it. And then maybe like 2 months after that, in August or July, I can't remember, the founder called me, and I'd actually seen they were advertising 2 positions, but you know, I was just like quite busy with my own thing and didn't really think anything of it. And she calls me and she says, hi Sav, I'm not sure if you've seen, we have a position available. We've got 2 positions that we think you'd be epic at either one of them. Like, would you consider doing it? And I was like, oh my God, like of course I would, I'd love to. Then went home and thought about it, and they wanted me to work 4 hours a day for 5 days a week. And I was like, actually, like with everything else I've got on, this is going to be impossible to do. Like I can't work 4 hours a day on top of like all my other commitments and then still study like an LLB. So I went back to them and I was like, I'm so sorry. Like as much as I would love to do it, I unfortunately actually cannot in terms of time. And they're like so chilled, Sam. Like they're very chilled. Like we completely understand. Like your studying comes first. And then I remember calling my mom afterwards, going back to my mom, who's just like an angel sent from heaven. I said, Mom, so like I turned down like speech females, it's just at 4 hours a day, it's just too much. And she was like, oh my word, why are you being so silly? It's like, what? She's like, tell them you can work 2 hours a day and that they'll like reduce the pay to half of that. And I was like, Mom, they're not going to say yes. Like they want someone for like that. And she's like, just try. So I was like, okay. And then went back to them. I was like, is there any chance you'd consider doing like 2 hours a day? And they ended up saying yes, and it was like so epic. I was so stoked. And then, yeah, I worked for them for like 3.5 months before I had to resign for my exams. And it was so amazing. And the learnings that came out of that, and just seeing how the company's grown. And again, it's like they're serving so many women and they're giving so many women so many tools to excel in entrepreneurship. And the company is scaling every day. It's doing so well, and it's like their focus at the moment is like broadening into Africa, and they're doing so well with all their programs at the moment, and just the network that it is. Like, even from me being in the company, I think, you know, like sometimes when you go to high school, you're like, oh, I went to the same high school, you have like a connection with someone. Like, often I'll like connect to someone on LinkedIn and, be like, and see they've done like a Future Females program. I'm like, oh my word, that's so epic, you know? And it's so amazing to know that they've like created that from the ground up. And it's so epic to know that I was like a part of it with them from like the end of their second year. And I really feel like such a close part of it. Even when I left, like none of them would accept that I was leaving. They're like, you're not leaving, you're just going like a few years and you're gonna come back. So it's so epic to have been part of something like that. And going back to like what I said earlier, it's about the people. Like, the company would have been so different if I didn't meet such amazing people, and learning from them and seeing what excites them and what, you know, gets them motivated, and see how they do some like things differently. Like, one small aspect that I love that I learned from the company that I would want to instill in my own business one day is every morning they have this thing called stand up, where, okay, obviously now it's virtual, but if it wasn't virtual, we would all go into a circle in the room and you'd tell your like 3 main things that you say for the day, and then you'd leave. So you'd get up and you'd say, I'm doing this, 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 cool. John T would go up and say this, this, this. Luca would be like, this meeting, whatever, cool. And like, everyone knows like more or less where you are, but it's quick, to the point, and you're also engaging with the people that you supposedly meant to be in contact with every day, but you sometimes don't see like everyone every day because everyone's quite busy. So yeah, I really, really love that experience. And I guess it is a really cool story to share to people that, you know, if you really want to work somewhere, don't be afraid to like pester. I mean, like, you know, you're going to get rejection emails, but you've got to show someone why you're different. Like, what makes you more worthy of the internship than someone else, and be different. Like, we laugh about it now when I say to Lauren, who's a founder, how I snuck into her DMs and how she called me when I was on a wine farm. Like, you know, it's like funny in retrospect, but in the moment I was like scared to do things like that, you know. But it is about like being different. And, you know, like I said to you the other day, John T, when I did Model United Nations, when anyone could apply to speak at the UN, and they didn't include Africa. And it like, the African, when I say like Nigeria, like Kenya, South Africa, none of us had even heard of this. And we were like so confused. And we somehow eventually found out that this was happening. And I remember thinking, everyone was like complaining about it on this group. And I was like, okay, but what is that going to achieve? We're all complaining to each other. And I straight away went to like their head, and I emailed her and I said, this is like pretty ridiculous how you haven't included Africa into this. And then I like justified to her why, like, you need to have an African representative. And then she said to me, she's like, okay, we'd love to have you. I was like, okay, you know,
amazing.
Like, it's just.
What is another quote to just whip out here? If you don't ask, you don't receive, eh?
That's the one we love.
It's a classic, but it is a classic.
Yeah.
And I think it is like, and again, like, you know, and I know I do it because I laugh at other people and people laugh at me when like you don't know something, you put up your hand and people are like, oh my God, like this person's so annoying. But yeah, you're going to answer the question. You're going to ask the question that everyone else is thinking, or, you know, and that's something I am proud to say, is that I don't get embarrassed by shit like that. Like, I'm not embarrassed to look like a failure, or I'm not embarrassed to look stupid, or I'm pretty sure half of my LLB class think I'm the stupidest person in the class, because I'm always like, does everyone understand? If not, put up your hand. And I'm like,
yeah,
don't understand.
Also, taking it back to, you know, asking for a job or something, or, you know, like, the worst is that they say no, right? And I think people are sometimes too scared, or they're scared of the rejection, as we've spoken about earlier. And, you know, like, just ask. Yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I think also it's like, I'd love to dig into this, because this is an issue I struggle with on the daily. It's because it's like this whole thing, it's like a social sort of people playing status games, right? And social status games. It's like, if you know, let me rather not ask for something or put myself out there, so then I'm like safe, and then I don't run a risk of getting rejected and looking like a failure. It's like, well, where's that going to get you? Then you're just going to stay. And I mean, if I look back at my university career, I've had all these aspirations. I've always been an aspirational person, but there were pivotal moments where I maybe didn't put my hand up in class, didn't go talk to someone at a conference because I was too embarrassed and I didn't think, it was valid. It was a valid question. I didn't, and this is where like the self-doubt element comes in as well. It's like, and I wanted to ask you, Sav, is like, what runs through your mind? Because I'm so interested in this. Like, is there stuff you say to yourself in that moment? Like as you, for example, like as you filming that Miss SA video submission, or as you're about to give the Model UN people a call to say, can Africa come to the conference? Is there something you say to yourself? What runs through your mind? Like, I'm just so interested to get like inside your head and see how the process works, to just shut out the rest of the world and say, let me do this because I know it's right. I know it's right for me.
To be honest, Luca, I don't think I've ever really like reflected that much on like what my mindset is in that moment. So I guess that's something I should go and look to and like reflect on, because I think that is really interesting to like think about what I think about in that particular moment. But I like going on to
it's a bit
what
heavy.
you were saying about.
I apologize.
No, you just know it once, Sav, and you
like, yeah. But I do think that it is something we all struggle with. Like, I don't think any one of us can, like, I can't sit here and be like, I am so fearless, because I'm so fearful. We all are, But the only thing that I can think back is just going back to your intention and just, it sounds like a cliche, but we really, like, you can choose to be whoever the hell you want to be. You can be whoever the hell you want to be, and it's, as much as there are, like we said, there's certain elements in you that I feel like are intrinsic into your DNA, but you can still choose. Like, you can choose to be the bossiest person in the whole wide world, or you can choose to be the nicest person in the whole wide world, and you have that constant choice. But I kind of just think that in the particular moment, you kind of just working on adrenaline. You kind of just saying to yourself that, like, I'm just going to do it, and whatever the outcome is, it doesn't really faze me. Like, so often I'll apply for things all the time that, like, I don't think that I'm like worthy of getting or like worthy of entering, but I'm just going to do it anyway, because what am I got to lose from it? And I think that the biggest thing is probably like learning that you've got nothing to lose from like the situation. If you do it in an eloquent manner, and if you do it with the right intentions, you're not going to lose anything from the experience, or anything you'll gain from the rejection, or you'll gain from getting the experience. And if I can bring it back to like a personal story that I think for me was probably one of the most valuable experiences I had in university, was the example of the Forbes Leading Women Africa Summit. And I actually was chatting to I emailed the CEO or the editor of Forbes Africa today. We're like, because I completely forgot that I didn't like thank her for inviting me, basically, after chatting to you. But for me, that was like the most amazing experience. And it goes down to people. And basically what happened is, and my old roommate can tell you the story, because it's really is funny how I was so desperate to go to this conference, because it was basically what it is a conference of 500 women from all the leading industries, whether it's finance or lawyers or doctors, or even to startups, to NGOs, to sportsmen, to like a whole range of like successful women. And I so badly wanted to go to this conference, because I thought, oh my word, can you imagine how epic it would be learning from all of these women, or just hearing them speak on like the stage would be like so epic. I'd love to like join this. And I remember telling my roommate at the time and saying, like, how cool would this be? And I was like, we have to go. She's like, yeah, we like need to go. And there was like this competition that you could enter, that if you like bought the magazine and posted, and I couldn't find the magazine in like two of the shops. So I was like, oh, whatever, like clearly I'm not meant to go. And I remember waking up the one morning and she'd gone to work and being like, there surely is a way that I can get there. There has to be a way. Like, maybe if I just go into the website and find someone there and like explain to them I'm a student, that I can hustle something. And that for me, I remember being a really scary moment, because I went into the website and I just remember finding like a name, and it said sponsorship coordinator, and I just took her name, took her number down, and I remember writing like my notepad, and I remember shaking, like writing on my laptop and being like, what am I going to say to her when I call her? Like, I can't just be like, hey, I want to come to the conference, I'm a student, you know. I've got to make it like appealing and attractive to like why she would want me to come. And I called and got through to her secretary, and I was like, please can I speak to Teresa? And then she put me through, and I like basically just said to her, I was like, hi Teresa, essentially, I can't remember my exact wording, but I am a student and I've heard about the Forbes Leading Women Summit, and I think it's really incredible. I was just wondering, are there any sponsorship tickets for students? Like, are there any sponsorships available? She's like, unfortunately not, like the event is completely sold out. I was like, okay, but is there any way that I can like, you know, get a seat somehow? Or she's like, unfortunately, there's nothing that I could do. I said, can I please get your email, your personal email, and can I just send you my CV, and I send you a letter and explain to you why I'm really, really think this will be valuable learning experience for me. She was like, and she was very like sassy on the phone. She's like, sure, my darling, but there is like, we're printing the name badges today, but you can send it, but yeah, there's nothing I can do. It's like, okay. And then like time about like half an hour went by, and I was like, holy cannoli, like she's not answering, like she's clearly not interested. And then, I don't know, there was something in my head that just said, just go check that email again. And I'd spelled her name wrong in the email, so the email didn't send through. So like how unprofessional. I'd like pleaded for this like ticket on the phone, and then half an hour later I hadn't sent this email. So like obviously we sent the email, and then gave her like some time, and like didn't hear back like another half an hour. And I was like, oh, you know what, like I tried, like that's all that I can do. Then I saw that the number was calling me, so I like sheer panic. And I remember being on like I think I was like at a hostessing job or something, and like answering the phone, and she was like, hi Savannah, just want to let you know that you're coming to the conference on Friday. And I was like, what? She's like, I really loved your motivation and the reason why you wanted to come, and I think that's really epic. And she's like, just promise me one thing. It's like, yes, of course. She's like, that you'll pay it forward someday. And like, it was so like, I wish I could just like, you know, some moments I just wish I could like video and just like grab, and it's like, oh, it was just so like special, because she wanted me to be a part of it, but she so desperately wanted me to pay it forward. And I think she'd hustled for me to get to this conference, and it was really cool. And then eventually could go there, and I to this day think it was probably the best conference I've been to in terms of like women being really raw and real, and like providing like learning and insights. And I mean, like at my table sitting like two people next to me was the head of the Alan Gray Orbis Foundation, and like then I had like the head of this bank, and then I had the head of like an Olympian, and then it was just like the most successful woman, and just like sitting there and like chatting to them, and it was so amazing. But throughout the day, it's like every speaker got up there and said, we need to include the youth and like provide them education and this and that. And eventually it was like 11, and this thing started at 8. And I turned to like a lawyer lady next to me, and like I didn't know any of these ladies. I met them all there, and I said, this is so amazing. Like I'm learning so much, and like I was teary at one stage, but I just find it so fascinating. Like every single one of them keeps speaking about the youth, but I'm like the youngest here, and I can't fathom it. And I said, would you know like how many people like were young here? And she's like, I have absolutely no idea. And then she nudged me and she said to me, go speak to someone. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, go speak to like, I don't know, and go challenge someone. I was like, and what's that gonna do? She's like, I don't know, like just, I was like, who am I gonna go speak to? She's like, I don't know, just go to the MC and ask the MC that question. I was like, oh, okay, I'll go to the MC. So like, I'm not afraid in that situation, you know, where like this random person next to me is like, go ask someone. Like I wouldn't, no, I'm too scared. Like, it's like, okay, like why not, you know? Went to go ask the MC, and I was like, it's like, and she's an amazing MC, by the way, her name's Gugu, Poofy, amazing. And she said to her, I was like, hi, like I'm really curious, how many like young women are at this conference? I don't even know if you know this answer, but I'm just really curious. And she said, I'm not sure. And I was like, don't you find it fascinating? Because she's obviously interviewing on it, that every single speaker has spoken about, like, including the youth, but like there's no youth representation here. And she was like, yeah, that's actually really true. And I was like, yeah, anyways. And then like I was like walking away, and she's like, wait, Savannah, come meet Renuka. And I obviously I knew Renuka because she introduced herself as like the editor of Forbes Africa. And so I was like, hi, like I'm Savannah. And she's like, yeah, like what do you want to say? And I was like, no, I'm just curious, like how many youth are like coming like to the conference, or is there? She's like, no, there's later on the day there's like, I can't remember, she said 60 people from UKZN coming for like a talk. And I was like, okay, but surely that defeats the whole point if they're coming for like 1 hour of the whole day. She's like, no, I agree with you. She's like, I do think it's valid to probably include more young people. And I was like, well, I don't think it's valid. I think it's like imperative, to include like young people. And she's like, no, we'll definitely consider like your thoughts. And I was like, thank you so much. And I was like, that meant so much to me that she like listened to me, So like sat down, went back to my table, and then the MC got up and said, so we've decided to add like something else into the agenda. We want to hear a few of your ladies' opinions. We're going to start with Savannah, and then the two other ladies like to come up. So I'm sitting at this table, I'm not even listening to her speak, like chatting, and I was like, did she just call me? Like, I was so gobsmacked. I was so caught off guard. I honestly didn't even know what to do. I was like so taken aback. So then, naturally, we then go up onto the stage, and then like obviously two other ladies came up, and then I said like what I said to you. I said, this is an amazing platform. I've had the best day. I've taken away so much learnings. The experience today, and I said, this lady that I hustled a ticket from gave me this opportunity, and I'm so grateful to her for giving this opportunity. But why must I like hustle to get here? She said, I said we must get a seat at this table and make this more of an inclusive event. And the other two ladies said this thing, and I got off, and I was like overwhelmed by like women that came up to me and just said, we agree with you wholeheartedly, like this is so important, like thank you so much. And then there was like 2-3 other really young girls, probably like my age, a little bit older, that like, thank you so much, you made me feel like so, like I felt so isolated, but knowing that you agreed with me was like so amazing. And it was like the most overwhelming day, because it was just like I had this idea that in my head, and my intention, and I wasn't afraid to go speak to some person. But I think you also have to know that from the outsider's perspective, like you seeing that on social media, you're like, wow, that's like really cool. How did you get that? But it came back to my intention. And that's what I believe is so important, is that I wasn't out there to go and speak on the stage. Like I was out there fulfilling my purpose, hoping to serve other girls so that they could get the same opportunity that I had gotten, who didn't have the confidence to hustle out a ticket, And that for me is like so important, that I can't execute that on social media and explain that on social media, But like obviously like my friends and like close people know that's I did like what I did. But like more importantly to the story, and like why it's such a beautiful story, is that the following year I didn't hustle a ticket. She invited me to the conference, and in Renuka's opening speech, she said that we made it compulsory for certain business leaders to bring their mentees along to the conference. Our youngest speaker is now 18 years old. We've never had someone like that's 18 years old. Like she had listed like 3-4 things, and like I was sitting there, and it was like all about youth inclusivity, and I was like, it's just so amazing that like my 2 cents has now made this more inclusive for other girls to get the opportunity to be here. And it was just so amazing, and like it was like, I don't know, it was so fulfilling to know that I know that this is what I'm meant to be doing, like I don't know, like not necessarily a career goal going to a Forbes conference, but like I know that serving for me is my purpose, because I hope that I'd want to pave the way for other people to get opportunities, because that would mold them, and that's what makes people successful, is through your opportunities and through your experiences. And yeah, it was really, really, really cool.
Yeah, so cool.
I feel like we should give you a round of applause right now. That was amazing. No, seriously, that was unbelievable. But I think there were so many little important points that I want to sort of take out and like just leave as like nuggets for the audience, because there was so much in that which is just so valuable. Is that first thing from the interview process? Well, sorry, not even the interview process, is how you got the ticket to, you got your golden ticket to the conference, is that you didn't take no for an answer. You so badly wanted to go that you tried every single thing you could until you had sent the email and you said, okay, you know what, if it happens, it happens now, which is something I've done for an interview as well, as not taking no for an answer. If it means you have to send 30, 40, 50 emails following up. It depends how badly you want it. The more follow-ups you'll send, right?
Yeah.
Another thing which is so important that you were basically talking about the whole time is that, and I believe that this is why things panned out the way for you that it did in that moment, is that you didn't go there with an agenda, actively trying to seek out 20 seconds of fame. You know what I mean? On the stage in front of everyone. And I think people would have seen right through you. You went to the MC and you just, raised a concern of yours. Not because you wanted to be lauded with praise. It's because it would benefit the conference in the future. And look what happened a year later. So I think, and it also comes back to like, doing things selflessly. It's like not doing something because, not doing something because of your own financial gain. And I've spoken about this a lot recently, is that more so because I'm trying to get it into my own head as well, is that, whether you're going to start a huge business, and that's all good and well. If you want to start a huge tech company, which a lot of people want to do, and, go into entrepreneurship, but do it to solve a problem for someone else. And it's such a recurring theme, but it just needs to be drilled in, is that this thing is not about you. It's about starting something that can uplift people, whether it's through your business or changing a conference positively. So, I think that's such an amazing story, Sav.
Yeah. Thanks for inspiring us.
And I wanted to ask as well, which is super cool. You sitting at the table at the conference with all these amazing people, loads of achievements, and you sitting there as like the student, 22-year-old. What piece of advice would you give younger people if they were in a similar situation at a conference, in their job, in a meeting, surrounded by older people, more intimidating people? What would you advise people in a way just to like easily slide into the conversation? 2 or 3 tips, or and how do you 2 or 3 tips on networking, basically.
Because that is a very difficult situation. Even for me, it was really tough to because everyone was sitting at tables. So I thought, how am I going to maneuver myself to get people and friends to sit at a table with, But to be honest, I think it's very important to listen, because they all have a wealth of knowledge and they have so much wisdom that comes out of them. And to ask questions more than anything. I remember sitting at the table and not being scared to ask the lady that was 3 rows down, being like, so what brings you here? What do you do? Just having maybe key few questions that if you panic in a situation like that you can go back to. Or, if you someone speaking about a sport or something, and you can slide in through that way, I just think it's important not to be too overpowering in a conversation like that, or just to you gaining from them. They'll probably gain from you, but it's more so you gaining from them than, they're going to gain from you, and to be confident, because it is scary. But if you're going to go there and be so shy, I could quite easily have gone there and stood on the side and just, watch the speeches and then left. But to have the confidence to know that, it's okay if you don't know anything, and it's okay if you look like a fool and they think, oh, shame, this little teenager at varsity or whatever, it's okay. You're there to learn. And I think it's being okay with, you don't, even if I went there and hypothetically, if I went there and I just had gone to the conference and my 20 seconds of being up on the stage didn't happen, I still would have gotten something out of that, and I still would have learned from that. That every experience you're going to learn from, and you have to accept that where you are and what had happened is what had happened, and where you're meant to be. That I think we also well, both of you have spoken about it, and I also do it. It was I could have done that so much better. You probably could have, but there was a reason that you didn't do it better. And there's something that's going to come out of that that's going to teach you to potentially be better in the future. But I really do think that it's a big thing is the confidence. And that's something that we all really battle with. But, like I said, feeling that fear, like feeling that insecurity, or feeling that nervousness, or feeling those, like feel it. Like I always say to my friends, if you're gonna cry, cry. Don't half-heartedly cry. Like feel it.
Yeah, exactly.
But then then do it anyway. If you're scared or you're nervous, or just do it.
But that's it. Confidence comes from repetition and
of course,
doing things, speaking more.
Yeah.
If you want to create content, for example, it's an easy thing for John T and I to say is like start a podcast, just get on a video. Doesn't matter how in the dark you are. How if you go and look at some of our early episodes, we like lit poorly, like my face is all in shadows. It doesn't matter if your earphones don't hardly work and the audio is like jumpy and stuff. Just say what you need to say, and as you progress, you'll get better and you'll learn, and so it's like in a conference.
Look what you guys have like created now, and like how proud you guys can be of yourselves now from what you created to what you started with, and then how if you think, oh my word, I need to wait until it's perfect, it's never going to get done.
Yeah.
Sav, just to close off the podcast episode, this amazing final episode of 2020. With one final question to you, I want to ask, if you were to say one thing to young women, women who are restarting, trying to get their business going, trying to start something, trying to create something, what's the one thing you would say to them to shift their mind to a better place?
Powerful question, Jens. Powerful question. Probably it would be that if you knew that tomorrow was your last day on earth, would you be happy doing what you're doing today? And would you be happy with the person that you are today? Because I like to think that if you're going to bed every night and you knowing that you're not going to wake up tomorrow, that you're going to bed at peace knowing who you are and what you're giving to the world and what you're serving to the world. And I think that that's something I would tell people, is that it ultimately goes down to, if you're happy with that and you're happy knowing that what you're doing, then you're A for way. But always, and I'll say this again, go back to service, and that service humanity is the best work of life. So any way that you're doing it, but you have to be conscious and know your intentions, and that will lead you to the right path.
Sure. Sav, thank you so much for coming on the episode with us tonight. That was just incredible. You're so inspiring, and we hope that our listeners can take something away from tonight. And I mean, you certainly inspired me to do more for service, to just be a better person. So thank you so much.
Before you go, I just wanted to jump in here and say, on behalf of John T and myself, thank you so much for watching that episode. We really, really appreciate it. If you enjoyed that episode of Mindshift, check out some of our others. They should be around here somewhere on the screen. Also, subscribe to the channel and give this video a like for the YouTube algorithm. Till the next Mindshift, bye for now.